Dear Redacted,
September 23rd, 2008. Let's disconnect together. Sign off with me and scribble a letter, time permitting.
if you want to indulge in old-fashioned walks to the mailbox,
Receiving something other than junk, especially from a writer as talented as yourself, would prove girls don't need groupies. Sapphic advances in the form of a cover letter attached.
alas, we're both straight, according to our depressing Mary Carr memoirs. Are you sick of folks blogging either about dinner or their clits?
Information is so much upchuck these days. Everything I become aware of feels like an extracted piece of shrapnel. Ever feel tarred and feathered to your life?
I lack a metaphor baffling enough.
They stopped teaching cursive in schools. Are we supposed to sign our paychecks with an emoticon? Ink on paper has a slippery carnality to it, like getting wet at Mass. Oops. I'll go ahead and opt out of orbit. Shunt me to a less recumbent planet. We could trash pick a better globe. I've been lost under the influence of my own loose cannon speculations. Might kill this pen making amends. You're definitely out of my league as a bestie. When we met, I thought Sephora was a singer. But it seems our 20s ended at the halfway point. No one parties like the world's on fire anymore. Who left us so extinguished? I miss being Sylvia Plath's drunken patron, head in a sidecar oven, pawing through the fumes to enact your echo.
How do you eliminate an entire itinerary? 2 years ago, I was a normal, 25-year-old with a job, lodging, and a paid-off car. Relatively efficient cognizance. All my chromosomes in one basket. Short academic stints were suffered through. Your standard, respectable performance. Google's a better educational system anyway, etc. Then, big birthday present. I got what felt like a batch of urethral asbestos. These symptoms were familiar. I'm the owner of a genetic condition called polycystic kidney disease. Dying slow without you, girlfriend. Whole ERs recognize me. Turned out this was my 1,000th kidney infection. Now, however, the cyst-spored organ contains stones. I hadn't passed before. An awesome process. Plus, the infection spread everywhere. They tried like 6 antibiotics. I stayed sick for months. The mall closed and I lost my kiosk job. Money evaporated. I went to interviews sicker than ever. Pissing boulder-sized landslides. Plop. Square into a catheter. TMI? T and M and I are my middle initials. Suffice it to say, the stinging around my kidneys and the accompanying nausea never went away. I did concierge work at all 4 malls in town, feeling like a demented representative of the place itself. Inflamed stadium carved apart and moving soiled product. People, in general, began infuriating me. I developed some novice animosities, a formerly unprompted aspect of my character. Hanging irony quotes off most interactions kind of hurt my insides worse. Poking the masses in their feed bag with an overemphasized greeting is fun, periodically. But listen, I used to be sweet. Remember that doggerel I'd sputter about God? I'm glad you didn't listen. Neither did he. Beyond fatigued, arrested by my body, I had an advent calendar of migraines. Savior supplements for the rat maze. Christmas Day on my parents' gauche couch. The inaugural hideous seizure commenced. I came to in an ambulance, demanding answers. None were provided. They gave me Dilantin. That didn't help. Week-long visits to the hospital, wires all over my head like Kid Medusa. After supreme misdiagnoses, it was determined I had epilepsy. Great! My new neurologist put me on Dopamax. Quite suddenly, I started having spastic attacks, dozens a day. He upped my dosage, 25 mgs. It blew what little remained of my brain to bits. No clue who I was for days. Withdrawal lasted 3 weeks. Without meds, I seize quite frequently, but I'm on Depakote lately. It lessens the duration. I still live in fear, though, don't you? How else? Must be 6 months seizure-free to drive. Hasn't happened. I'm awaiting a government decision about being ill enough for free money. A ridiculous and lengthy process, but my lawyer is cordial. Bored doctors assault me with a biome-slaughtering deluge of antibiotics. Baker's dozen yeast infections inserted with top-notch suppository form. These doctors went ahead and invented a pretend infection, and we treat it accordingly. Last visit, I was given a script for, pardon my French, dildo-sized antibiotics. The result was far from satisfactory. Their cycle beseeches completion, I'm told. LOL. Godless plastic pinioning my insides. The scariest dose was labeled Cipro. Lucky for me, I threw most of them up. Burning pain overtook my limbs. The world blurred back over, expressly how I preferred it. Stress upped the seizures. Let me admit, runs ran through me and into what was thankfully not a thong. I'm no thong girl. I'm a shit-herself idiot. A convent reject. The first nun in hell. Worse, I might have gotten fat. Here came the fluconazole. That burnt my vag. Lips to miscarriage. Kidding! Unprotected sex is for the exceedingly well. Don't get me started on birth. There are a great many distractions from pain. Society's sort of built around that. We all share the same blank, coordinated nations. I'm seldom able to read. Depakote strains my eyes. I watch too much TV. Classic numbing agent. Florida weather is like weightless butchery. Sunlight scratches a rash wherever it lands. I'm rather photosensitive and itchy. Bright lights are immediately blinding. Anything close to a strobe and I'm frothing on the floor. I wear sunglasses indoors. Noises provoke as well. Beeping triggers an attack. Headphone accoutrement scarcely assuages. A tonic onset contuses each knee. Seconds before I'm lost in the twitch, an aura ignites, haloed around objects. One warning of an oncoming attack. Looks like ghosts are swallowing the furniture. Certain meds remove this aura, so I just wake up afterwards, talking like a child, slimy in my clothes. I've tried 5 anticonvulsants. Doctors emphasize the likelihood of epileptic death. 0 sleep degenerates these issues. I await the Grim Reaper, even in my dreams. Sometimes I count him tossing ancestors over a fence by the body part. And brief sleep arrives. I'm Ojibwe, hence the complexion. Think the dream helps? 'Cause of course I was a self-cutter as a teen. Weren't you? Correspondence keeps the night intact. Forgive me for this taxing traumathon. Sorry, but I've butted into your life with the ugliest thoughts deposited in print. Dorky lachrymose balderdash no friend should parse. Rank disclosures gross to know. I value your patience, if any remains. Despite my tone, I feel very lucky to have a genius like yourself to associate with and wouldn't blab so openly with anyone other. A couple kind friends here in town are allowing me to live in their spare room, but they may have reached a verbal limit. None dare condone my long-winded nature. Life is worth dusting off once in a while. The occasional bout of optimism does occur. I pray at least that much is mutual. Take care, Carrie. P.S. Please, please, please. No pressure to respond. Dear Redacted, December 14th, 2008. Never mind replying. My last letter was a mess, and sometimes it takes months to assemble myself. Just want to express a few odd events real quick to see if I sound crazy. Not to journal at your expense, but I've always trusted you without reservation. So no rush. Add me to the pile. One of the kind people minding my disorder is a boy from church I used to hook up with. A lot of teenaged, sweetly plied, third base rituals, promises written in spit. He's a full-fledged ex. Honestly, we're back at each other with more expertise this go around. Drinking became an issue for him then. Slight charm of tipsy youth, but the problem seems to have returned and compounded itself. Okay, we're both defective and approaching 30. Recall how I peddle my forgiveness on spec? His being a cheater in our former life would improve upon reunion, perhaps. As I suspected, no pity for the sick. I made a habit of loving a man with everything I had. No idea how sex is effective otherwise. Of course, post-breakup, complete renovation couldn't disguise a cracked foundry. Routine emo lifestyle. Since he and I met again, after my rehabilitation from that Dopamix meltdown, our vulnerabilities were reignited, and in I moved. When your presence is a constant reminder of mortality, friends tend to disappear. He took care of me, reduced my institutionalizations. Initially. Years ago, I dreamt my renewed beau cheated with a redhead. A confession the next day confirmed as much. Too casual of a reveal for my liking. We hadn't even consummated. Not that I got much beyond a mousy appeal, but I'm confident his choice, in comparison, was perplexing to say the least. Guys I like always come inside single moms with ho accents. He heated a fork up on the stove and cauterized 3 holes into his chest for each orgasm spent in absentia. I thought a blowjob would provide reconciliation. Instead, roommates were sicked on me with an overperformed reverse interpretation of the suck. Juvenile drama, infidelity alibis. You could write the rest. I'm a bit cornered again, and not well enough to obtain anyone sweeter. The roommates grow more militant in their dedication. Charles Manson maintained impressive recruitment percentages after all. He does look like Charles Manson now, by the way. I'm going to describe certain actions that have been taken since alcohol abuse and boredom set in before sociopathic behavior registered to me because of my upbringing. As stated, I suffer a bundle deal of seizures. Your brain needs a while to reset after the impact. I'll keep this short, but he started taking me during the blackout phase. And I'm so screwed up on meds, I have trouble believing my own story. It is true. I'm not that gone yet. Dismal memories linger. Penetration forced through clenching muscular readjustment induces a type of physical agony most people remain aloof to till old. It's mangled my ability to piss. To counter inquiries on the matter, he and his roommates have launched a campaign of hiding my belongings. Also, cute tricks, like leaving the cabinets open and blaming it on a fugue of mine. This conspiracy of mean camaraderie, pranks, the authenticity of which produce a paranoid, cryptic emphasis on all the rape. I don't mean to sound melodramatic, just aware enough to detail general malevolence. Even my mom drifted from her trance, witnessing car keys I set down seconds ago disappear. Oh, he's a computer nerd for a living, so I can't email you or anybody about this. A letter would be great, our only option, really. Anyway, I've stopped eating, approaching child size. Yay! Not too upset about that. My boyfriend absolutely loves it. Tight fit. I was 7, the first time a guy violated me. One of many teen cousins. He had manufactured pretexts to wrestle inside an insanely long closet. I went deer in headlights, like they talk about, while he spent forever dry humping my dress. I don't think he could finish. So we played Nintendo, him snatching a hand between the controller and his cock. My 5-year-old sister sat in the closet, watching and giggling. When he mounted her, I jumped up, firing off excuses to swap places and save her. A stupid instinct. I think he finished then. She didn't care. Truly my stepfather's daughter. To this day, if my hand is directed towards someone's crotch, a fairly common foreplay maneuver, I black out. Once I came to in a man's bathroom, teasing my scalp with scissors, till there was a thin laceration where the hair parts. Nostalgic dread invades when I hear him crack a drink. Similarly, I would pray for the car to crash whenever they drove me back to that cousin. My molester ended up decapitated in an accident. My lovely grandmother, only person I told this to till now, only human, even our pets were aggressive, who bothered loving me as a child, kept us apart as well. She told me I'd be visited by angels soon, and I was, both in dreams and in person, fleetingly. Our ghetto house had been the site of some drug dealer's seance. Vague memories of blood graffiti hosed off a basement wall. Maybe these early traumas made me visible to whatever resided with us. The presence there did not like me. It broke my items, hid them. Check me out. I'm in hell with it still. Acting like a lamb is sort of my purview. Saint Agnes, I ask you humbly, deign to intercede for me, to see the lily of thy purity stained and trampled in the mire. I'm not inventing an elaborate curse or outlining a horror script, just telling anecdotes. The guy I dated before this spectacular pic had an older friend, born with no legs and a deformed hand. Otherwise not bad looking, he used his fancy wheelchair to gain romantic attention. I assumed, however, enough satiation materialized to be safe near him one night, smoking too much weed. My boyfriend left for work. Wheelchair insisted I sleep in the living room. Cops patrolled that neighborhood too closely. Smashed awake to massive upper body strength, hammering me against the couch. A little beating protuberance pinched between his gnarled fingers. I may have convinced him to just jerk off. We fought with my clothes a while. But before finishing, if he did, the crooked, pre-cum slick, digits of his claw were shoved directly into the center of my breath from the cunt up. Everything after is a rancid strand of memory. He rolled to his room and fell asleep. I was convinced he'd reemerge at full stride, propelled by each fist like an ape escaping a thresher. And I huddled, stock still, in the cold garage. He found me by morning and presented options about what was allowed to be relayed concerning our incident. We would either convert to secret lovers or forget the entire assault. He asked if I was okay an uncountable amount and convinced me to lie down with him. Nothing sexual. Donuts were suggested. Freed and home, I called my boyfriend and confessed to initiating an affair with Wheelchair so they could keep being friends and consider me an errant slut. After getting screamed at a lot in some kind of manic haze, I flopped to the truth. He believed me, eventually, but continued hanging out with the guy. Guess I'm alive inside there. Half a high five. I'm about to be given a round of slurs for doing the laundry wrong or something. Writing sure is as cathartic as you say it is in interviews. I haven't orgasmed in a year, though. Could you tell me to leave you alone in good faith? Feels like I'm whispering into the vacuum cleaner. But that's literature. Bye. Dear Redacted, March 5th, 2009. Hey, your latest MySpace pics hit some very convincing angles. My problem is 96 pounds is never an ideal weight for how short I am. Point in fact, it's like uncomfortably chubby. Being a bit busty does help. No concern of yours, Flapjack. At least I fight past camera magic to approach slimness, to X out as many calories as my failing health allows. A balanced malnutrition. We're ladies. We eradicate our wirework as we walk. Some, though, widen their size however possible, a posse of hormones deferred to. And if you sport a dykey bowl cut hairdo atop an already stout frame, in the name of our parents' ultimately fruitless and long dead revolution, well, don't you think it sacrifices a prim and prime asset? Is being ugly a mandate now? Gluttony abominates female nature. We require more upkeep than intake. Are you contributing to Britney Spears' destructive coverage, or are you against hairbrushes at large? Maybe the male gaze will finally be sliced under its own icing in the span of one god-awful generation. And we can pour our diva cups into the keloid. Aging hippies will love that, especially if the smell is overpowering. I can't even chat on the phone without abandonment issues.
without entering a death panic for anyone on the other end to pay enough attention to call me a fucking ambulance. Imagine how I feel drafting handwritten letters to a debutante using the bottom of her talent to drag other writers, boyfriends mostly, down to her hefty level. You have written back exactly zilch, just like the rest of your output. My bad. Done practicing lessons in our passive aggression workbook. You're such a well-paid teacher. Figure it out. Okay, I cried myself sane. If I didn't love you, slut, I wouldn't get so pissed. Because your book is a tawdry, bad faith exploitation of what can actually be done to our gender, I'd like to explain to you in private, inside our nudie booth exclusive, the meaning of playing victim. Let's have some sincere, intimate fun. You were always like family to me, which is to say, with the worst word available, another disgusting clump. A menstrual remainder urination won't release. I remember how you chirp and retort, secretly cavilling at every assertion, the acetone of your approval laid over a conversation. My most patronizing hug waster. Did you know your lips move when you read? As if in search of dick. You write like your pajamas were stapled on. You're your own muse, and that, my dear, is the illness of our zeitgeist. Another neutered breed of bitch, kissing girls at parties for crowd work, ignoring any obvious connection. If you ever dare reply, I'll wipe with your letter to give it content. If I am an insect, gobbling, and gobbled in turn by its corpse's bloat, you can continue hydrolyzing the backwash. Worms will bore through the dry meat of my eye like music, and I can't wait to listen. Britney Spears is pertinent to our discourse. Her music means everything to me, and you could only parse irony from that statement. You know those hospital socks with skid-resistant bottoms? My one comfort. Drinking liquids takes willpower. There are no good days, just less nightmarish ones. Less random gagging and changing trash cans 'cause of vomit stink. I can feel my organs being rejected. Planetoid throb. Burst alien husk. They've outgrown their bloodstream. I'm fed the galaxy's ugliest light. There's an anticoagulant bulb being screwed into my skull. A therapist once told me my late blooming was due to the body rejecting womanhood. I'd hibernate from my bust if I could. That same therapist promised I'd never get raped again. At least they played Salt and Pepper in the waiting room. This is me spitting on your mixtape. I was raised with Catholic animosity by a hot young native mom and an Irish stepdad who delighted in tyranny. People that stupid owned houses then. He favored the daughter he made himself. One time, age 6, I dared to play on the basement stairs. while he was hoarding future rubble, tromping up and down between floors, visibly drunk. He planted a kick that lifted me off the landing into unconsciousness. My little robin's breast hair fanning the 13-step ride. The memory is a blur, but no bones were broken. Just a body's length of carpet burn.
Thank God they could afford that. He took a long time delighting in the story of how he wasn't my real dad. I kept to the ghosts in my room. You don't think Christ rewards us? I had a bunch of obese relatives grabbing and commenting about my ass when they weren't counting headdress feathers at the casino or selling red merchandise to yuppies during powwow season. When I was a teenager, they pumped out another slut who tried to seduce my first boyfriend before a shed diaper. She always ran up behind me, teeth bared, demonic entity of our Amityville house. She did scream Latin in her sleep. Textbook borderline personality disorder case conceived too geriatrically. It's okay. She's on heroin now. My brother kept gaining weight so his schizophrenia would slow down, but ended up stabbing someone anyway. I have a biological family tucked away somewhere, but seeing me ill reminds them of their own syndromes. Poor guys and gals. I'm not embellishing. You festoon your tabloidisms with blander affect. I love some of these people, despite themselves. Never understood the lure of truant affection. As my illness bloomed, the first thing my mother asked, in a cynical, dismissive tone, was if I demanded her money. An electronic poker addict, she stayed pretty a long time, but the glow of that screen has slowly come to reveal her true face. They visited the hospital once. My stepfather sucker punched me for stressing her out with all my complaints and weeping and ailments. Then they called the cops. Anyone could get me committed because of my condition. And a few have already, including the boyfriend I finally escaped. You should give it a try. I enclosed the number below. My best suicide attempts are behind me now. I had more energy then, working at the Dollar General, emptying medicine cabinets by the fistful when I saw my paycheck. I was given Ipecac and not allowed to sleep until the puke outweighed me. Since fluids are popular in girl fiction, my first period lasted 7 days and didn't come until I was 18. The cramps prevented standing. To this day, they arrive at random 4 or 5 month intervals, debilitating me weeks after. Maybe coming from government commods of reservation, res, fry bread, aided my decline. Makes me miss how people in Florida erroneously called me a chink all the time. Those underdressed kids in the trailer park, riding bikes, trumpeting drive-by libel from a distance. Like if I poured the whole language down a musket and scattered your head with it. Save the point of view for your skincare routine and bad tattoos. Male cigarettes instead. I press them into my scars to accent the regalia. Carrie Palmer. Dear Redacted, June 14th, 2009. Hi. I was visiting my favorite neighborhood of the Rolodex today and saw your name. Let's disconnect together. scribble an anachronism or two for the mailman to frown at. I miss your visage. I'd like to add its contents to the sideshow I call a life. Letters were sent to what must be an old, unforwarded address. If they arrive, please discard. There's plenty of me to discard if we're comparing notes on either end of our natures. Your book's craftsmanship mitigated my inadequacies. This is why I did the lipstick demonstration below. Because my page is nowhere as insidious as a kiss. Consider the following another wasted chapter workshopped between us. It's been a dimly sketched in year. The police officer stood outside my bathroom when I finished going, scared me so bad, I leave the door open now. Trauma response imposing mandatory peep shows mid-squat. I take comfort in their discomfort. Perhaps an agent had you eschew details of asylum time, but I was always more the Susanna Kaysen of our affiliates. I awoke strapped to a bed and was informed I'd bitten a cop. Hopefully we can agree I'm not that faulty a pet. Maybe charges were dropped because he liked it. Ha ha. Flattered to be tasted. Apparently, I wrote a scary Tumblr post, and wellness checks don't require warrants. They walked me to group therapy. No one explained this was a mental hospital. I suffer from a number of actual medical complications, so it was bewildering. I won't trouble you with my heinous symptoms. They said I knew the first and last name of the EMT who took me in. A woman I'd never met, that I accurately detailed how a miscarriage went. In some kind of blank rage, I named her stillbirth. She had to leave the scene. Being psychic sucks sometimes. I suspect they botched my rape kit on purpose. A nurse known as Peggy, but she was obese, screamed because a roommate who resembled my mom convinced me to flush my admittance papers. One time, post-ictal after a seizure, I wetted my uniform. Peggy lobbed me onto the bed. My shoulder sockets remained sore from her beefy judo. It was a constant roast, everything Piggy hissed. Neither parent bothered inquiring. A schizoid ogre entered the room at night, accusing me of stealing money, rationalizing his paranoia quite lucidly. With meta-aware monologues. The type of violence someone explains away as they perform it on you. Insomnia was cured with solitary confinement. My restraints bruised indefinitely because the more I fought them, the smaller each replacement became. Until a shoestring-thin band of nylon was sliced around my wrist, inducing computably protracted throbs, an artery inflating inside my ear. I could count the hours with my heartbeat. They made casual and ironic use of the word inhumane. Their management ran around fabricated accusations. Charities wrote off coverage, favoring sponsorship only for those cash cows who promised harm. This is how potential violence became an industry under the guise of benevolence. We can help her more expensively, increase a profit margin if we think she's dangerous. Bitch can't pay anyway. Documents were forged. Patient reports became a tad hyperbolic. Fainting during group would be noted as inciting another physical disturbance. Trust me, even my ideations had come to fruition long before this incident. You're my final ideation, hun. I don't pretend to understand the doomed entirety of this enterprise, but the tubby male staffer who whispered provocations while leaning over and performing frottage against my clavicle under the pretense of opening a milk carton would quite regularly snicker when any adverse reaction or outward sign of disgust provided an excuse to have me hauled away and shot full of Haldol, a monstrous drug designed for schizophrenics in the depths of hysteria, one prick of which has the potential to cause permanent brain damage, deterioration on rerun. Never been the same since my visit. No improvement. I forfeited my hoodie strings for this. I memoired with the crayon they lent me to decipher what exactly? Not to diss a prophet. Communism's gay. I'm sure you'd argue otherwise. Convince me in bed, please. Unrelated, but aren't you sorry we missed the rape of Nanking? At least those prisoners had the pleasure of euthanasia. Back when they'd eviscerate pregnant women to make room for penetration. The phone was open season. Gang-banged by any patient nearby. Had to pace the very few rings I received alongside a woman with dementia who would answer, demanding callers crown her with jewels. There really were files to charge on a rapist ex of mine, they insisted, but I refused to subject anyone to state punishment. There are higher caliber retributions, much more colorful methods of decay. A clueless doctor chucked discharge papers at me. I stumbled miles in the rain to a friend's workplace, trying to hide my hairy legs. People asked if I needed help. They kept buying pastries and flinging cigarettes. Returning to the couch surf I inhabited before institutionalization, all my religious icons were arranged upside down on a blood-specked altar. "You did that yourself," my friend whispered as she smoked. My stepdad later declared he'd take me to a homeless shelter for slowing him down in my wheelchair. I can't walk well when my kidneys engorge. They had me committed again for the thrill. That's another cluster of lies conjectured against me. Help me acquire the penultimate epiphany of abuse, so both our pros might crawl back to quality. I became the plastic quake of my erasure by light, flushing any evidence of existence. Fluorescent wine, like an angel sighing off its wings. Everyone flipped through the filthiest claircognizance, whispering how the saints would keep me safe. Each body, one shadow, punctuating the doorway. I was thoroughly injected, walking through the cobweb of my own face. Getting out alive didn't mean much. Couldn't sleep for a sacred number of days. I saw the same Christ the others did, and he was tired by then, digging an image of my mother into the counter with long nails. "Marry rich," she always said, "'cause every dick is an asshole, and as long as it's shitting out money, you'll be all right." Holy Mother, who delivered me, to hold her hair while the alcohol came back up. Heave ash in our toilet to heaven. Joint bloodline over the Sibian machine that shares us. Obligated to love like you. Pig. My grade school was branded after the patron saint of lost causes. I did cute presentations about being an engine. There was this giant Metallica fan who looked like a fully grown man. He beamed a tritone devil's cord telethesia into my marrow. I wanted to be a bride of Christ, had no idea what masturbation was, even when accomplishing it. I passed out during Mass, visions of holy reverie. I felt like the first saint that could come. We were ruled over by a 300-pound nun who taught us how to speak. This waddle-bodied goon, one of the pinheads from the movie Freaks, wearing an Elvis wig, a talking costume, turtle skull poking from a box of used Kleenex. She was part Cherokee, supposedly, though she lied herself white, stomping up and down outside abortion clinics on 8 Mile. She hosted Socratic rundowns, attempting, in vain, to get us to think, and would call on kids, unprompted, humiliating ignoramuses. If my handwriting slanted too far, she'd whack a yardstick on the desk. Intermission. Am I too negative? I cherish that nun's tough but fair cult humiliations, just as I cherish yours. That room-filling cackle you'd administer. No joke. Neither my art nor my feelings deserve recognition. But the first girl I kissed, the other shy dweeb in class, ventured a Gangsta's Paradise parody with me. We won everyone over for a day. She jumped ship without being an unendurable tease. Strawberry lip gloss. You were an award-winning friend. We formed an ignored militia. I live pitted low in the pecking order. Consider most of life's minutia a rancorous little obstacle course toward what goal we'll soon discover, much to our chagrin. Imagine a shrimp like me braving the caricatural girl shrieks of a homecoming dance, vaginal peer pressure, why they played booty-groovin' R&B I'll never guess, to initiate with a boy, one I didn't even have a crush on. Withdrawn as he was, confirmation was obtained. We were surrounded by gossipy monitors, killing the moment. I tried willing him to follow up on our promise, but he was abysmally resigned to staying alone with his member. Grade school crushes develop and are dependent on arbitrary proximity. Cool how adults sometimes abandoned us to our purpose. Who they placed next to you could flavor your libido. My crush and I shared a set of headphones on a field trip. This hussy on the hayride teased us so much, I turntabled a loogie with my tongue, waiting to present it to her. Here it is! I had to move to Florida to get laid. Not that I wanted to move or get laid. Neighbors blatantly spanked it to my preteen undergarments on the clothesline. Now I am the special needs kid of the home I'm allowed in. They put my doodles on the fridge, ersatz publication, and accuse me of eyeing their dumpy men. Permanent addresses are for yuppies. My parents had me young and partied with friends. We slept as a family unit at the house of a single mother, poodle-haired 80s blonde, whose daughter hated sharing. While they recovered from hangovers, the daughter insisted that Play-Doh, a luxury my parents never invested in, was edible. I stuck the salty rind she kneaded into a confection down my gullet and vomited on her lap. I've been told to eat Play-Doh for the length of an existence. Every offered up amenity, like reflux, packaged back. I was awake all night with the taste. Moldy toy. The single mother appeared in a long, flowing white gown, candle pried to her face. She leaned close, croaking,
"You better stay in bed,"
and seemed content to leave me there, shaken, before returning, pressed in next to the heat of her breath.
"And your parents better stay in bed, too."
I'm not sure if she's let us leave. If we're, perhaps, this very second, locked inside her spandex together, sweat mushrooms conjured between thighs. People become the disclosure they're born for. Even though I am surrounded by it, I refuse to acquiesce to darkness, though I am left alone in the cold, though hell is all I know. The instinctive, drowning response of others' baseless provocations will no longer burden me. I can't dwell on petty disputes. This probably means goodbye, unless you feel differently, in which case I aim to embrace you with my whole heart and never relent. That evil has chosen me in no way supplicates me to its practice. P.S. Since we're so return to sender, poetry enclosed. Suit up death by the syllable from your adamant, devotional pen pal. Thanks. Peak coagulation. Cerebral quivering walls us in. Hot inhabitant caked with aspirations. This cell encodes consciousness, becomes an inferno of its limb. Cloned orbit that reflects how well we ferment. A kiss as metamorphosis. Clotting prophetic. Peak coagulation. Distilled rather conclusively as circuits rip my brain to the frequency bestowing us as thought in a shattered land of bulbs. Our love climbs infernal vines calcified in this cell, freshly invaded limb, another distance to dissolve. Spawn gummed arterial, divine clot fermenting, blessings boiled to completion. Marvelous decay improves a workout in this hell. Flesh prolepsis, shred to transcendence, a cover slip blemish, peak coagulation. Vibrate to spit, Leviathan, give me vomit that shrinks the earth. I want to spend an eternity in its labyrinth, fastened together, trading births. I love quaking in the calcium your brain makes, while you microwave my limbs, shimmying to invade each blink. Boiled to begin. Pupae tied to the wrong weave. Arteries converging. Leviathan cholesterols obliterate sex. Sacrifice your spit to me, purified on concrete. Fastened to the last gasp, an insect diorama of us grows its own portal. Sacrificial pupae bust my gums, better than wiping a father up. I'm impure. Imprisoned, I despise my flesh, this jellied mistake, product of swapped clots,
Sloppy cycle. I shut my legs to keep extinct. Dead bloodline. Budding fermented. Scabs on a plate. Flicked at fate. Yes.
Daddy never tires of me.
Mommy never tires of me.
He coughs.
She coughs.
Scary decades. Hidden in phlegm. On my back. We're at a social function. Looking around. Finding each other's glance again. Wind makes the house lean. Daddy doesn't care. Mommy doesn't care about prison. I'd be in there with her, promising things. Spit inside a cigarette. Hair-laced tobacco. Shaved from my space. So she can fire me up. Breathe our scent. We begin metastasizing during labor. Mommy's too wet to hug. Daddy's too hard to hug. She's becoming a ghost. But death is a long way off. Another daddy guarantee. I'm an abandoned animal. Standing on his lap.
Standing on her lap.
Sleeping in his scream. Sleeping in her scream. Forever beneath the porch together.